स्क्रीन दिख रहा है?
हाँ सर।
Today we'll learn DOM traversal. So DOM traversal methods, so DOM traversal functions. So DOM traversal methods or functions will help you to travel the DOM elements. So you can travel the DOM elements using DOM traversal method or DOM traversal function. So DOM traversal functions or method. In the DOM traversal, so we have the functions like next, next all, previous all, previous, first, last, parent, children, equal. So a lot of functions there. So many functions we can say, few of them here. So next. So what next function will do? So it will find the next element from current tag. So it will find the next element from the current tag. So it will find the next element from the current tag. Immediate next element. It will find the immediate next element. Next all will find all the elements from the selected tag. Now let's go to Visual Studio and let us experiment with the DOM traversal here. So create an action, the public action result DOM traversal, so just some name of action, and here also something called return a view, and in this view, so say add a view. Now here I'll go to solution explorer. I'll go to script and we'll get the jQuery file here in the head section. Now I'll create document structure here, h2, also DOM traversal method. So here also h1 support first heading. Now also content tab. Also h1 second heading. And here also paragraph, so content tab. And here it's in third heading. This is a paragraph, content tab, third heading, use to demo, h1 fourth heading. Content tab, fourth heading, use to demo. Okay. Now if you run this, taking a lot of time. Okay, so here we are. So by default, it will look like this. Now what we'll do is we'll put ID to this p tag. So p1. So p1 is ID of this p tag. Now let's write a jQuery. So the script type equal to text slash JavaScript. Yesterday I told you, so we should embed entire jQuery code into this function. And now I'll tell the jQuery, go to DOM and find a tag with ID is p1 and get me the next element of it. So next is a method which will go to the next element of p1. So immediate next element of p1. So immediate next element of p1. Then we'll apply the CSS on it. Suppose here will say something called background dash color, and here will say something called orange. So background dash color, and we'll say something called orange here. Now, so let's go to this and we'll refresh this. So which one is p1? So p1 is this paragraph. So p1 is paragraph, and the next immediate tag of the p1 is this tag. So it's getting the orange color for that immediate next tag. Now similar to next, so what we can do, so we can also use the next all. So if you want to get all the next tag, so say next all, and here also CSS, and this is something called background dash color, and here also something called gray. Background dash color, something called gray. Now when we run this, so now all next tag of this p1. So P1 is this, and after P1 we have this tag, this tag, this tag, this tag. So all the next tag of the P1 will have this particular background color that is called green. Now similar to next, so we can use the next method that we have is previous, all and previous. So prev and prev all. So prev will get you the immediate previous tag, and previous all will get you all the previous tag with that. Now here, so we'll say find the P1 tag, so say dollar, and here will say something for hash p1, and we'll get the previous tag of this p1. So it's a dot prev, and then we'll say something for css, and then here it's a background dash color, and here we'll say something for blue. So dollar hash p1 dot prev dot css, the background dash color, and then we have the blue here. Now we'll go to this, and here we'll get the previous tag to be the blue. So p1 is this tag, and previous tag of the p1 is this tag, so it will get you the prev. Now similar to prev, so you can also use the prev all. So I'll say dollar, and we'll say hash p1 dot. So if I comment this, and here we'll say prev all. So prev all will get you all the previous tags of that particular tag. So it's a css, and here we'll say something called background dash color, and here we'll say something called red. Now I'll refresh this. So we'll get the all previous tag of that tag. Fine. Now this is not the previous tag. This is not a previous tag because this is outside the div. So this is outside the div. So it's not the previous tag for that particular tag. Fine. So previous tag is immediate previous tag. So this one, this one, this one. Okay. Now this is the parent tag. This div is the parent tag, and this is outside this div tag. Now similar to that, you can go for the first or you can go for the last. So you can find the first tag, last tag from the tags of them. Now for example, suppose here if I say something called a dollar h1. Now what this will do, so this will get you all the h1 tags from the DOM. Now this will get you all the h1 tags from the DOM. So this will get you all the h1 tags from the DOM, and then we'll say so dollar h1, and this will get you all the h1 tags from the DOM. So from that I want only first tag. So from all h1 I want the first tag, then we'll say first here we'll say css, and here we'll say something called a background dash color, and here we'll say something called al. So we are here. So what will happen? The first h1 will become L. So from all h1 it will be the first h1, and first h1 will become L of that. Now the next thing that we have is something for dollar, H1. So get all the H1. From that, get me the last H1. Here will say CSS, and here will say background dash color, and here will say something called, so we'll say something called sky blue. So the last H1. So this will get you the last H1 from all the H1s of that. So we have here the last H1. So fourth heading. So that will get you the background color sky blue. Now similar to this, we have the parent and children. So parent will get you the parent tag of the current tag of that, and children will get the child tag of the current tag. Now, so how we can do that? Suppose, for example, we have this in this paragraph. So we'll say something called, this is bold tag, and we'll say this is italic tag used to them. So we created two tags, the bold and italic. So if you look at here, so italic is a child of a bold, bold is a parent of italic. So this P tag is a parent of bold, bold is a child of P. So this P tag is a child of div, div is a parent of P, and div is a child of body. So body is a parent of div then, and body is a child of HTML. Right? And HTML is the parent of the body. Now this way we can use the parent-child relationship here. Now suppose if I say get me itag italic and get me the parent of italic. So who is the parent of italic? The parent of italic is something called bold. Then we'll say something called .css, and here we'll say something called background dash color, and here we'll say something called we'll say green, or we'll say, so here we'll say something called orange. Now if we go to this and if I refresh this, then we have this. So this is a bold tag, and this is italic tag used to them. Right. So who is the parent of italic? So parent of italic is bold. So bold background color will become orange. So bold कहाँ से start हो रहा है? यहाँ से खत्म कहाँ पर हो रहा है? यहाँ पर. तो ये सारा का सारा क्या हो जाएगा? Orange. Fine. Now the next thing that we have here is, so here we'll say something called dollar, and we'll say I dot, we'll say parent, and sorry, instead of I we'll say find the bold, and go get me the children. So we are finding the children of the board, and here also CSS, and this is something called a background dash color, and here also something called we'll say, so also green, also gray. So now the italic background color will become gray. So italic background color will become gray here. Fine. So like this, you can use the parent child. Now then we have one more method called the EQ. So EQ method will help you to find the specific tag using the index number from selected tags. So EQ will help you to find the specific tag from using the index number from selected tags. Now how we can do that? So for that I'll go to this, and here, so I'll go to this, and here we'll say something called, so dollar, we are saying it all the H1 tags, and from this H1 tag, so get me the H1 tag of index number is 2, and apply the CSS, and here we'll say something called background dash color, and here we'll say something called orange. So dollar $H1 EQ of 2, then CSS background color dot orange here. So index number of this H1 is 0, index number of this H1 is 1, and index number of this H1 is 2. So the second H1 index number will become orange. Now it's a dollar H1, then we'll say EQ, so we'll say something called 0, or we'll say 1. Then we'll say CSS, and we'll say background dash color silver. Okay, so we'll have the silver background color for first index number H1. So you can use the EQ like this. Now similar to down traversal methods, so next thing that we want to understand is event handling. So how to do the event handling in a jQuery. So how to do the event handling in jQuery? Now here, so jQuery has its own event model, and you can handle events as follows. So jQuery has its own event model, and you can handle the events in a jQuery as follows there. So $selector dot event name, then we'll have the function curly bracket and curly bracket. Here we can write the code. So in case of a jQuery, suppose if you want to handle the event of any tag there, so the first thing that we need to use the dollar, then we have the selector, then dot event name. So here we have the event name here. So $selector dot event name, and here we'll say around parenthesis we'll say function and curly bracket here we have the statement or code. So this function will be executed when this event occurs. So this function will be executed when this event occurs. So this function will be executed when this event occurs on this particular selector. So on this particular selector. Now here, so jQuery has its own events like click, double click, mouse enter, mouse out, mouse move, mouse key press, key down, key up. So similar to JavaScript. So we had a word about this in the JavaScript also. So similar to JavaScript, it has set of events, and those events can be used here to write the code or to execute some code. Now let's try to do the event handling, and for the event handling, I'll create another action. So I'll not do in this particular action. So here we'll create one more action. So I'll say public, and here we'll say something called action result, and here we'll say events. Now in the events, we'll say something called return a view, and we are adding a view here. So MVC view, and here we'll see something called events, and we'll get the jQuery here. Now suppose if we get a button here, so we'll say input type equal to button value equal to click, and here we'll create a script type equal to text slash JavaScript, and you'll say dollar, and we'll say function dollar and the function here. Now in this function, so I want to find out, I want to find the button, and we can say will handle the click event. So one option is dollar, we can say input. So you can use the tag selector. So because there is only one input here. Now here, so instead of input, so we'll create ID for this button, and then we'll say dollar, and we'll say hash and btn, and here we'll say click, and in the click we can have the function, and here in the function, so we'll handle the click event of this button. So at the first step, we are telling to the jQuery, go to the DOM and get me the tag whose ID is btn, and then handle the click event of this btn and execute this function on the click. So execute this function on the click here. So it's an alert, and here also something called button click. So alert, and here also something called button click. Now run this. So when we click on this button, we'll call this function so button click. So when we click on this button, so we'll call the function button click. Okay. Now suppose we have a div, and in this div it's style background dash color as orange, and also just width 100 pixel, and also height 100 pixel, also hello. Now suppose I want to handle, so to handle the click event of this div, or mouse enter or mouse move event of the div. Some events will handle here. So let's first see what is the output. So we are getting the div here. Now to handle the event of this div, so we can do that. So we can select this using tag name, but if we try to do that using a tag name, so what will happen? So it will get you the multiple divs of that. So here, what we'll do, so we'll say dollar and we'll say hash div. So we'll find a div using ID. So we'll find a div using ID, and then we'll say something called handle a mouse entry event. And in the mouse entry event, we'll just say something called, so we'll write something in the div or we'll change something for the div. So you can do that using something called dollar hash dv. So hash dv here, and so we'll change the background color. So when we have the mouse entry event here, so it's a CSS, and we'll say background dash color, and here it's something called blue. And suppose in similar way, so we can use the dollar hash dv dot mouse leave, and we'll have the function here, and here it's a dollar hash dv dot css, and here it's a background dash color, and here it's a separate red. So background dash color red. Now save this, refresh this. Now when we move the cursor inside, so it will become blue. When we move the cursor outside, it will become red. Blue, red, blue, red, blue, red. Fine. Now instead of finding this div, you can also use the this keyword. So if you want, so you can say dollar this. This means a tag, current tag who had generated this event. So the tag who had fired this event, so that will be identified here using a this, and in a this we'll say something called background color, and we'll say something called blue. And here also, so we can use this dollar something called this dot CSS, and here we'll say background dash color, and here also something called that. So you can also use the this keyword to access the current tag here. Same output here, so there will not be any bit of difference. But what we are doing, so we are using this. So this will help you to access the current tag. So this will help you to access the current tag here. So if you want to access and use the current tag, so you can use the this keyword. So if you want to access and use the current tag, so you can use the this keyword here. Okay. Now this way, so what we can do, so we can do the event handling. So we can handle the change event, or we can handle key press, key down. So what are the event that you want to handle? Just put the dollar and then select the tag, then dot event name, and in the event name pass a function with a parameter, so that function will be executed when that event occurs with that particular tag there. Now, the next thing that you want to go for here is DOM manipulation. So, DOM manipulation provides you the method by which you can manipulate the content of a tag. So, this will provide you the methods, and those methods will help you to manipulate the content of the tag. So, it will help you to manipulate the content of the tag. So, the first thing that we have here is the text. So text is a DOM manipulation method, and this method will help you to read and write the text content of any tag. So text is basically a DOM manipulation method, and this method will help you to read and write the text content of any tag. So text is a method that is used to read and write the text content of any tag. Now the next thing that we have is HTML. So HTML is used to read and write the HTML content of any tag. So HTML is basically used to read and write the HTML content of any tag. So HTML is again a method which will help you to read and write the HTML content of any tag. Now if you try to compare this, you'll find the similarity of these two methods with two DOM properties. So which DOM properties that we have learned? So inner text and inner HTML. So inner text and inner HTML. So instead of inner text and inner HTML, we are using here a text method and the HTML method. So text method and HTML method. So text method when called without parameter will read the text content of a tag, and when you use the text method with the parameter, so it is used to write the text content of a tag. So text method without parameter is used to read the text content of a tag, and text method with parameter will help you to we can say write the text content of a tag. Now similar way, so if you call the HTML without parameter, it will read, and if you call it with parameter, so it will write the HTML content. Now let's try this two methods. So for that, we'll create a separate action here. So we'll create one more action, something called public, and here's action result, and we'll say DOM manipulation. So DOM manip, and the DOM manip action is also written, and here we'll have the view. Now add the view for the DOM manip action, so we'll say add view here. So MVCify view, and we'll say add here. Then we'll say DOM manip. Now in the DOM manip, so we'll include the jQuery file here. We'll go to Solution Explorer, so we'll drag and drop the jQuery. Now here, suppose we have this div tag, and in this div tag, this is div tag used to demo. So we have some text here. Now suppose we create two buttons, so input type button, and we'll say value equal to read, and here we have this. And we'll say create one more button, so input type button, and we'll say value something for write. Now I'll put some ID to this button, so we'll add some ID to this button here, so we'll say ID equal to, so we'll begin 1, and here we'll say something called ID equal to something called begin 2. So ID equal to begin 1 and ID equal to begin 2. So input type button, so value equal to read, ID begin 1, and input type button, so value write, ID equal to begin 2. Now let's run this and we'll see what output it gives us. Now, so we are getting this output. So what I am to do, so on the click of this button, I want to read the content of a div, and on the click of this, we want to write the content in the div. Now for that, I'm going to write a jQuery. So to write a jQuery, we'll say script type equal to text slash JavaScript here, so say dollar, and we'll say function. And in this, what we can do, so we can use the jQuery. So we'll find the div here, so say dollar, and we'll say div. So we'll find the div here, and we'll say dollar and a div. And in this div, so what we'll do, so we'll so we'll handle the click event of button. So it's a btn one dot click. So when we click on the btn one, so what we do? So we'll read the text content of a div. So how we can read the text content of a div? So it's a var v equal to. So we'll say dollar. So find the div. So now there is only one div here. So you can find it directly using a div tag. And then we'll say text method. So we'll call the text method without parameter. Now when you call the text method without parameter, so it will read text content of the tag. Read the text content of that particular tag, and that text content will be available in a V, and we'll say alert V, so it will alert the V. So it will alert the V. Now in similar fashion, so here we need to use the hash of that, so that the ID selector. And in similar fashion, we'll handle the hash between two clicks. So we'll say between two, and then we'll say click here, and in a click we'll have the function. And in this function, so what we can do, so it's something called, so where v equal to something called dollar div dot, we'll say something for it. We want to write the text. So to write the text, we'll say dollar find the div, and then call the text method with parameter. So here we'll say this is new text. So this is new text used to demo the div. So this is a new text used to demo the div. So this is the new text used to demo the div tag. So a hash between two dot click function, then we have the dollar and div text. So this is a new text used to demo the div tag. So this is new text used to demo the div tag. Fine. So this way, so we can read and write the text content in the div. Now refresh this, then we'll click on the bar read. So it will say this is the div tag used to demo. Now if you click on the right button, so it will write this text inside the div. So it will write this particular text inside the div tag. Now the next thing that we have here is, so assume that your div has HTML. So it's a bold. So this is bold, and so we'll say italic. We'll say this is italic. So it's something called paragraph. So this is a para. So div has some HTML also. Now in this situation, so if you run this, read this using a text, so it will read the text. So it will read text only. So it will read the text only. So we want to read the HTML. Now to read the HTML, so it's a var v equal to find the div, and then call which method, so HTML method on this. So when you call the HTML method on this div, it will read. So when you call the HTML method on this particular div, so it will read the HTML content of this div, and it will get it into the view of that. So it will get it into the view of that. So it will get it into the V, and then we can say alert view that. Then in similar fashion, so if you want to write some HTML content in a div, so it's a dollar and we'll say something called a div, and in this div, so what we can do is we'll use the HTML method to write some HTML. So font tag, so font, and we'll say this is font, and here's a demo. So now what we are doing, so we are writing the font tag, but this font will not generate any effects. So we'll generate some effect like something called red, and here's the size equal to something called 40. So single quote inside the double quote of that. Okay. So now we are writing the text as well as HTML, and we are reading the text as well as HTML using the HTML method. Now run this here. So what we can do here, so when we say read, now it will read the text. This is a div tag used to demo bold. This is bold. Then I, this is italic. Paragraph, this is a paragraph. Now when you say write, so it will also write it. So it will also write. So it will write the font tag here. So it will write the font tag. So it will write the font tag. Now the next thing that we have is val method. So text and the HTML, these two methods can be used with any HTML tag. So these two methods can be used with any HTML tag, but val is used to read and write the value of HTML control. So what if your tag is a control? Tag is control means if what if your tag is input type text or checkbox or radio button or password or select. So in that situation, to find out the value of that particular control, so we use the val method. So val method will help you to read and write the value of HTML control. So val method is basically used to read and write the value of HTML control. That's the value of HTML control. Now here, let's do this. So here we have input box enter name, and here also something called input type equal to text, and input type equal to text, and name equal to txt. So name equal to txt here, or else id equal to txt. So the id here. So id equal to txt. Now suppose I want to read and write the content of this text box on the click of these two buttons. So I have to read and write the content of this text box on the click of these two buttons. So in that case, then we cannot use the text or we cannot use the HTML. So we can use only val method. So val method. So here, so first find the text box. So where v equal to how we can find that text box. So we can find that text box using ID. We are given the ID to this particular text box here. So it's a hash, and we say txt dot. So txt hash txt dot something for val. So dollar hash txt dot val. So dollar hash txt dot val. So dollar hash txt dot val. So it will read the value of that particular tag of this. So it will read the value of this particular tag of this. So now we'll save this. So it will read the value of that txt tag of this. So it will read the value of the txt tag here. So we'll say dollar, and we'll say hash txt.val, and here we'll say new text used to demo. So new text used to demo here. So new text used to demo. So dollar hash txt val and new text used to demo that. So new text used to demo. Now refresh this. Now here we'll say, so we'll say something called Ganesha. So यहाँ पर हमने Ganesh बोल दिया read. So it will read the Ganesha. Now when we say write, so it will say new text used to demo. So this val method is basically used to read the value of any control or write the value of any control. So if you want to read the value of some control, or if you want to write the value of some control, so that you can do using a val method. So that you can do using a val method. So this is just, we can say, similar to inner text, inner HTML, and the value property that we have in the DOM. Fine. Now these are the three methods that we can use for the DOM manipulation. Now, the last thing that today we want to understand is effects and animation. So jQuery also provides you the methods for the effects and animation. So here we have few methods: hide and show. So hide and show will hide and show the element of that. So hide and show will help you to hide and show the element, and toggle. So toggle will hide the element if element is visible, and it will show the element. So if element is we can say hidden. So if element is hidden. So the three methods are there. So hide method will hide the element, show method will show the element, toggle method will we can say show if hidden, if we can say visible, it will hide it. So if it is visible, it will hide it. So it will do the toggling. So true false. Now here, to have the demo of this, so we'll create an action here. So I'll go to the controller and here we'll have this something called the public and will say action result, and in the action result we'll say something called effects. So we'll say something called effects here. Now in the effects, so we'll say something called a written a view. So here we are returning the view and we'll say add a view here. So return the view and here we'll say add a view, and in this view so we'll get the jQuery. So in this view, so we'll get the jQuery here. So I'll drag and drop the jQuery file here, and then we'll say something called script, and in the script we'll say type text slash JavaScript, and here suppose this is a div that has the ID dv, and suppose we apply some style here, so it's something called the background color. So in the background color we'll have the orange, and in the foreground color we can have the blue. So we can have the blue here. So in the background color we have the orange and suppose foreground color blue, and we'll set the width something called 100 pixel, and we'll say height, or we'll say make it 200 pixel, not 100 pixel, 200 pixel, and we'll say something called height here, and the height will say something called 200 pixel. Now in this div we'll just say something called hello, this is div. So in this div we'll just say something called hello, this is div. Now I'll create two buttons, so input type button, so value equal to show. So we'll say id between 1. To create one more button, so input type something called button, and here also value equal to a height, and also id equal to between 2, and here also input type equal to button, value something called toggle, and here so toggle, and also id equal to btn3, and then we have this. So we got these three buttons. Now let's handle the click event of these buttons. So before going to handle the click event, let us first see what output it will give us. Okay. Now when we click on the show, it should show. When we click on the hide, it should hide, and when we click on the toggle, so if it is visible, it should hide it, and if it is we can say not visible, it should show it. Now here we'll create a dollar dot function. So this is the compulsory thing. Then we'll handle the first button click. So it's a dollar. It's a hash between 1 dot click, and in this we'll find that div, and then we'll show it. So we'll find that div and we'll show it here. So on the first button we want to show, so we'll call the show method. So show method when called on any type, so it will show that particular type. Dollar hash between 2 dot click, and here we'll have the function. Now when you call any, we can say method with this, so we'll say dollar and we'll say div, and here we'll say something called height. So we'll hide that preview tag, and we'll say dollar and we'll say hash between 3 dot click, and here we'll say something called function. And in this function, so what we can do, so we'll call the toggle. So what toggle will do, so if that div is visible, it will hide it. If it is hidden, then it will show it. So we'll call the toggle method here. So these are the built-in methods in the jQuery. Now I'll save this and we'll refresh this. Now if I say hide, so we'll hide that preview tag. So when we click on the show, so it will show that tag. So when we say toggle, now this is visible. So when we click on the toggle, it will hide. And now it's hidden. So when we click on the toggle, so it will show it. Okay, but it's not looking like animation. So what we can do is we can specify some delay. So in the show method, so we can pass hide method or toggle method, we can pass some delay, so duration by which we want to delay this particular function, or we can say activity. So I'm passing 1000 milliseconds or microseconds of that. So I'm passing 1 second as we can say duration to execute that function. Now it will take we can say second to execute that particular function, and then you will find this is similar to some effect of that. Now it will take 1 second to hide and 1 second to show. So slightly it will do it. So toggle, so we can have this. Now if you look at here, so effect is top to bottom, and we can say right to left. So top to bottom and right to left, or left to right, or we can say bottom to top. So similar kind of effect is here. Right? So it will delay this particular function by this particular duration. So it will delay this particular function by this duration. Now the next thing that we have here is fade in. So we can also use the fade in. Now fade in method will fade that particular tag. So it will fed in that particular tag. So this will have the fade out. So fade out will do the fade out that particular tag. So fade toggle will fade that particular we can say tag to some we can say duration, and fade to. So fade to will we can say do the concentration of fading up to some specified value. Now let's understand this matrix of fade in, fade out, fade tag. So here we'll say show. So I'll just comment the show and I'll say something called dollar and we'll say div and here we'll say fade in. So in the fade in we'll specify the delay of 1000 seconds here. Then what we can do here, so we'll say dollar and div. So dollar and we'll say div dot. We'll say fade out and in the fade out we'll say something called 1000 seconds. And what we can do is so dollar and we'll say div and then we'll say toggle. So fade toggle. So fade toggle will do the similar effect like a toggle. So now we'll save this and once we save this we'll refresh this. Now you'll find similar effect but little different here. So we'll say fade out, fade in, fade toggle, fade toggle. Right? So it's just we can say doing the it's decreasing the opacity and then doing the thing there. So fade to. So you can use the fade to here. So we'll have one more button and here we'll see something called fade to method. So fade to and this is 4. So ID is 4 here. Now I'll handle the click event of the fourth button. So say dollar and we'll say hash begin 4 and then we'll say click and here we'll say something called function. And in this function, so what we can do is so in this function, so what we can do here is so we'll handle the click event. So say dollar, sorry. So dollar will find the div and here we'll say fade to. So fade to will fade the tag to a specific opacity. So first thing that we can pass the duration and second thing that you can pass the opacity, you will say 50%. So we are saying 0.5 means 50%. You can specify any value between 0 to 1. So 1 means 100%, 0 means 0%. So here we have this. Now refresh this. Now what fade toggle will do, so when you click on the fade toggle, so it will fade this particular div for 50% here. So it will fade that particular div for the 50%, but it's not doing because, so let me check, so why it's not doing here. Now, so bit info and we'll say hash dv or div, not a problem here. And we'll say fade 2. So the first parameter duration, second parameter is the opacity. Or it might be doing it, but we are not able to understand. Okay, so it's doing, but we are not able to understand here. So what I'll do, instead of orange, I'll use the red color so that you will be able to understand that it's getting fade. Okay, so this fade 50%. Now if I say only 20%, it will fade up to 20%. So up to 20%. So up to 20%. Now, so we can use the fade to fade toggle. Now, similar to this, we use slide down, slide up, and slide top. So these three methods are there. So that we can use that. So what I can do is I'll just comment this and we'll say dollar and he'll say du and we'll say something called slide up and we'll specify the 1000 here. And what we can do, so we'll just comment this and we'll say dollar and here we'll say du and I'll say slide down 1000. And here, so what we can do, so it's a slide toggle. So it's a dollar and du, and this is something called slide toggle. Now in the slide toggle, so what we can do is we'll refresh this. So it's similar to the previous one. So it will similar to the hide and show, but little different. So little different here. So I'll specify a delay here. Now I'll say slide, sorry, slide up, slide down, slide toggle. Okay, so it's having the slide effect, it's not having the hide and show effect. Now these are the methods that we can use in effects and animation. So these are the methods that we can use in effects and animation. So what we learned today, so we had a word about DOM traversal, then we had a word about event handling, then we had a word about DOM manipulation, and at the end we had learned about the effects and animation. Now after that we want to go for the Ajax, so we'll do that in the next session. So we'll do it in the next session. So today I'm going to stop it. Said tomorrow we'll continue with this, and tomorrow we'll understand few more concepts in the jQuery. Then we'll end up with the jQuery of that. Fine. Now, so is there any query or doubt here? So is there any query or doubt you have? No. Thank you very much. Have a good day.